Two Ice Age giants. One ruled the open tundra, the other tore through ancient forests. They never met in battle, but their differences spark a fight that still rages in science today. Mammoth versus Mastodon. Who was tougher, smarter, and why did both vanish forever? Mammoths and mastodons once shared the planet with early humans, but their origins trace back to different branches of the proboscidean lineage. Mammoths belong to the Elephantidae family, within the genus Mammoths. Their closest modern relatives are African and Asian elephants. Genetic studies suggest mammoths first appeared in Africa around 6 million years ago, before roaming Eurasia and crossing into North America. Different species emerged over time, including the woolly mammoth, Mammuthus primigenius, the Columbian mammoth, Mammuthus columbi, and the steppe mammoth, Mammuthus trogontheri, each adapted to distinct climates, such as icy tundras or milder grasslands. In contrast, mastodons stem from the Mammutidae family. They belong to the genus Mammoth, a group that separated from the elephant branch more than 25 million years ago. The best-known species is the American mastodon, Mammoth americanum, which appeared in North America during the late Miocene, about 10 million years ago. Unlike mammoths, mastodons never spread across Eurasia. Instead, they thrived primarily in woodland and swampy regions of North America. Fossils show they coexisted with other enormous mammals such as giant sloths, saber-toothed cats, and early forms of bison. The divergent evolutionary paths of mammoths and mastodons become clear when we examine their families' histories. Mammoths evolved advanced teeth, adapted for grazing on tough grasses and sedges. They developed large body sizes, and in certain species thick coats of fur to cope with harsh Ice Age climates. Meanwhile, mastodons maintained more primitive molars suited to chewing leaves, twigs, and other woody materials. Their morphological traits mirror earlier proboscideans, reflecting a lineage that branched off before the advanced features seen in modern elephants. Fossil sites across North America, Europe, Africa, and Asia reveal how different climates and land bridges guided these animals. The Bering Land Bridge was critical for mammoths, allowing them to migrate into what is now Alaska and Canada. Mastodons, on the other hand, show no evidence of crossing into the Old World. Their evolution remained tied to North American habitats. Over millions of years, these two groups faced shifting temperatures, predator pressures, and vegetation changes, leading them down separate evolutionary roads, yet shaping equally impressive giants. They continue to fascinate researchers, offering glimpses into ancient climates and migration patterns that shaped life. Mammoth and mastodon skulls reveal key differences in diet and lifestyle. Mammoths possessed high, dome-shaped skulls that housed large nasal cavities and supported bulky trunk muscles. Their tusks, often curving gracefully outward and upward, could exceed 10 feet in length. In some specimens, tusks display a spiral twist that served many purposes, from foraging in snow to tussling with rivals. The notable ridges on mammoth molars help them grind tough, fibrous grass. These enamel plates, stacked and cemented, created an efficient surface for shearing and chewing. By wearing down these ridges through heavy use, mammoths replaced each worn tooth with a new one until late adulthood. Mastodons, on the other hand, displayed flatter, elongated skulls with simpler bone structures. Their tusks were straighter and generally shorter, though still formidable. In many cases, tusk enamel was absent or minimal, reflecting a different feeding style. Rather than scraping ice or prying tough grasses, mastodon tusks likely assisted with strip browsing on tree branches. The molars of mastodons diverge even more clearly from mammoths, featuring cone-shaped cusps instead of plates. These conical bumps lined up in rows, perfect for pulverizing leaves, bark, and softer vegetation found in woodland habitats. One striking variation lies in the presence or absence of lower tusks. Some mastodon specimens show small lower incisors, though these remained underdeveloped. Mammoths, especially the woolly species, rarely featured lower tusks, focusing energy on growing and maintaining massive upper tusks. These differences in skull and dentition reflect each animal's specialized niche. Mammoths needed strong jaws and rigid teeth for grazing on coarse steppe grasses. Mastodons, as browsers, required pointed molars that could handle twigs, needles, and fruit. Tusks also served social and defensive functions for both species. Males of each group might clash in displays of dominance. Tusks likely helped them establish territory or compete for mates. In females, tusks might have aided in maternal defense, digging for water, or gathering edible roots. The shape and size of tusks evolved alongside changes in climate and vegetation, ensuring each lineage thrived where their favorite foods grew. Together, these anatomical traits form a vivid picture of two related yet distinct giants, shaped by different dietary demands and environmental pressures. Both remain prime examples of evolutionary design. Mammoths, especially woolly and steppe types, could tower up to 10 or 11 feet tall at the shoulder and weigh 6 to 8 tons. Some reports suggest even heavier individuals. Their bodies, designed for frigid steppes, featured a pronounced shoulder hump, where muscles and fat stores supported the enormous head and tusks. Thick fur, dense underwool, and a layer of subcutaneous fat helped them survive brutal winters. The African bush elephant, by comparison, can exceed 13 feet in rare cases, but mammoths often rivaled that height due to their robust skeletons and curved spines. Mastodons were typically shorter. They averaged around 8 to 10 feet tall and weighed 4 to 6 tons. While substantial, they lacked some of the extreme bulk seen in mammoths. Their back profile tended to slope gently without a pronounced hump. Because mastodons favored woodland environments, they did not require as many specialized cold weather adaptations. Instead, their solid, barrel-like bodies suited them for pushing through dense vegetation, fording streams, and browsing in forests. Differences in limb proportions further highlight how these animals adapted to their settings. Mammoths had long, columnar legs that helped carry heavy loads across open terrain. Wider footpads provided stability on slick or snow-covered ground. In comparison, mastodons exhibited slightly shorter, more robust limbs. Their sturdier frames likely offered better support in swampy or uneven ground. Both species walked on their toes, with thick pads of connective tissue forming the heels behind each foot, typical of proboscideans. Sexual dimorphism appeared in both groups. Males usually had larger bodies and tusks than females. In mammoths, older bulls might develop especially dramatic tusk curvature, which played a role in mating displays or territorial battles. Mastodon males showed strong, thick tusks as well, but these tusks curved less dramatically. The differences between sexes in each group probably shaped herd dynamics, breeding seasons, and resource competition. Mammoths thrived on open steppe tundra landscapes where grasslands and low vegetation blanketed vast stretches of northern Europe, Asia, and North America. These habitats, often cold and windswept, supported hardy grasses, sedges, and wildflowers. Woolly mammoths were so adapted to such regions that their thick coats and insulating fat layers helped them endure temperatures well below freezing. In contrast, Columbian mammoths roamed warmer grasslands in parts of what is now the southern United States and Mexico. Despite local differences, all mammoths relied on broad spaces with abundant grasses, which they consumed in huge quantities each day. Mastodons, however, were denizens of forested and swampy areas. In many parts of North America, from the eastern woodlands to the Great Lakes region, evidence of mastodon remains points to wooded swamps, conifer stands, and mixed deciduous forests. Studies of preserved stomach contents reveal diets of conifer needles, twigs, bark, and fruits. The shape of mastodon molars, with cone-like cusps, matched the challenge of chewing fibrous plant matter. This forest-focused lifestyle made them less tolerant of treeless or extremely cold environments. Instead, they flourished where trees grew thick and water sources were plentiful. Seasonal movements occurred in both groups. Mammoths might migrate across hundreds of miles in search of better grazing, especially as the climate shifted between harsh winters and brief summers. Snow coverage could limit access to grasses, so they often followed routes to warmer zones or river valleys. Mastodons likewise shifted territories if food supply dwindled. However, their travels likely spanned shorter distances, tied more closely to forest cover and the location of ponds or marshes. Pollen analysis near mastodon fossils suggests that these animals were closely linked to wet, wooded habitats, where they could browse at will. Predation pressure may have differed too. While both faced Ice Age predators like saber-toothed cats or dire wolves, mammoths in open terrain might have needed stronger herd defense. Mastodons, hidden among trees, use dense thickets and their robust tusks to repel threats. Their preferred habitats also shaped social group sizes, with forest dwellers possibly forming smaller herds. Thus, each species found a unique ecological niche. Where mammoths saw open prairies, mastodons preferred the cover and resources of forested wetlands. Mammoths and mastodons showed signs of complex social lives, much like modern elephants. In mammoths, Fossil trackways and mass death sites point to herding behavior, with females and young often moving together under the guidance of a matriarch. This setup offered protection from predators and helped with cooperative care for calves. Large bulls roamed more independently, sometimes joining herds only during mating seasons. Must-like behavior, in which males experience periods of heightened testosterone, may have driven fights over territory or access to receptive females. Their long tusks, used for sparring, showed clear signs of wear and sometimes broke. Mastodons likely followed a similar pattern, though direct evidence is scarcer. Their remains often appear in boggy or forested contexts, making large bone beds less common than in open-steppe mammoth sites. Nonetheless, the presence of multiple mastodons of different ages in single locations suggests group living. Smaller herds would have given them an advantage against lurking predators in dense woods. Young mastodons, reliant on their mother's milk, needed many years to mature, strengthening family bonds. Adult bulls, as in mammoths, might have wandered separately, rejoining groups when ready to mate. Communication in both groups presumably involved vocalizations, trunk gestures, and body language. Modern elephants use infrasonic calls that travel over distances, so it's possible mammoths and mastodons did the same. Touch and smell also played major roles in forging social ties. Although we lack direct recordings, fossil footprints sometimes reveal patterns of movement and pacing that imply close coordination, especially when crossing tricky terrain. Social alliances often revolved around resource availability. During abundant seasons, herds might expand or merge. In harsh times like deep winter or drought, they might break into smaller units to reduce competition. Cooperative care extended to defending calves from predators, with adults forming protective circles. Evidence of healed injuries on some skeletons shows that wounded animals survived with the help of group members. When herds grew large, the surrounding vegetation faced heavy pressure. This browsing or grazing could alter local plant communities, influencing everything from grasses to trees. Ultimately, the group dynamics of mammoths and mastodons balanced their biological needs with environmental constraints, forging family bonds that lasted generations. These ties underpinned survival, echoing the strong kinship seen in elephants. Near the end of the Pleistocene, mammoths and mastodons faced mounting environmental stress. Global temperatures rose, shrinking the ice sheets that had once supported vast grasslands. As glaciers melted, open steppes gave way to forests or wetlands in many regions. Mammoths, specialized in grazing, saw their preferred grasslands replaced by shrubs or trees, reducing their food supply. Mastodons, though more adapted to forested habitats, also encountered shifting vegetation zones. In addition, extreme weather swings and changing water sources pushed both groups into ecological corners. Human expansion into new territories compounded these pressures. Paleo-Indian hunters entered North America around the last glacial maximum, gradually spreading across the continent. Archaeological evidence shows that both mammoths and mastodons were hunted. Spear points have been found embedded in fossil bones, and butchery marks reveal systematic meat processing. While some researchers argue that climate change was the primary driver of extinction, others point to the synergy between warming environments and human predation. Large, slow-breeding animals are especially vulnerable to overhunting. Even a moderate increase in hunting pressure can collapse megafaunal populations already under stress. The Younger Dryas, a sudden cold snap about 12,900 years ago, further disordered habitats. This event disrupted rainfall patterns and plant growth, intensifying challenges for proboscideans. Some isolated mammoth populations, like those on Wrangel Island, survived several thousand years longer, possibly due to reduced human contact. Mastodons lacked such refuges, disappearing from most of North America roughly 10,000 years ago. Fossil dates show lingering pockets of survival in some regions, but none endured beyond the early Holocene. Over time, local extinctions accumulated into total species loss. Without these giants, entire ecosystems changed. Grasses, shrubs, and trees once grazed or browsed by mammoths and mastodons expanded unchecked. Smaller herbivores took over some niches, but the broad-scale engineering of landscapes by trunk-bearing megafauna ceased. The disappearance of these animals, along with saber-toothed cats, giant ground sloths, and other iconic Ice Age mammals, marked a significant shift in Earth's biodiversity. Much of what we know about mammoths and mastodons comes from excavations in tar pits, riverbanks, and ancient lake beds. Early paleontologists pieced together skeletons by hand, but today, Advanced methods deepen our insights. CT scans and 3D imaging allow researchers to examine fossilized bones without damaging them. This technology helps identify pathologies, estimate growth rates, and even reveal muscle attachment sites. Carbon dating, along with newer radiometric methods, refines the timeline of when certain populations thrived or vanished. Analyses of preserved hair and tusks have revolutionized our understanding of these giants' lives. In Siberia, frozen woolly mammoths occasionally emerge with flesh, fur, and even stomach contents intact. Scientists test stable isotopes in tusk dentin to reconstruct seasonal migrations, as well as variations in diet. Each growth layer in a tusk can capture information about the animal's health and the environment at that time. Mastodon tusks offer similar data, though complete specimens with soft tissues are rarer. Meanwhile, ancient DNA studies have pushed boundaries in genetics. Although DNA degrades over millennia, well-preserved mammoth remains can yield fragments of genetic code. By comparing these sequences to modern elephants, researchers map out family trees and measure genetic diversity in prehistoric herds. There is ongoing debate about whether de-extinction might someday be possible, using cloning techniques and elephant surrogates. While still speculative, such projects underscore the scientific fascination these creatures inspire. Fossil footprints also supply valuable clues. Trackways in places like Canada or the southwestern United States record herd movements, speed, and group structure. For instance, parallel tracks from multiple animals of varying sizes suggest coordinated travel. Distances between footprints can hint at gait and behavior. Some trackways even preserve impressions of tusk drags, reinforcing how these animals navigated muddy ground. Archaeological sites where humans interacted with mammoths or mastodons round out the picture. Tools, cut marks on bone, and burned remains link big game hunting to early human survival strategies. By combining paleontological, geological, and archaeological data, we gain a more comprehensive view of these species' final chapters. Ongoing discoveries continue to refine our knowledge, ensuring that each new fossil site unearths more secrets from the Ice Age. Though mammoths and mastodons share a superficial resemblance, they highlight how evolution can produce separate paths within the Proboscidean order. Mammoths generally grew taller, bearing rigid teeth designed for grazing, while mastodons were shorter, with conical molars meant for browsing. Tusks in mammoths curved gracefully, whereas mastodon tusks remained straighter. Their respective habitats, open grasslands for mammoths and forested wetlands for mastodons, shaped their bodies, diets, and behaviors. Both traveled in social groups, nurtured young for years, and faced hazards from Ice Age predators and human hunters. Culturally, these creatures have fascinated humankind for centuries. Early American colonists unearthed mastodon bones in swampy lands and called them incognitum, puzzling over their identity. In Europe, frozen mammoth carcasses in Siberia spawned stories of giant subterranean moles. Thomas Jefferson famously tried to prove that America's mammoth fauna rivaled Old World beasts, fueling national pride. Today, mammoth and mastodon remains star in natural history museums worldwide. Children and adults alike marvel at the towering skeletons, imagining a lost world of tusked titans. Scientific interest continues to flourish. Paleontologists study how these animals interacted with early humans, investigating potential overkill scenarios. Others explore the environmental roles these giants played, from dispersing seeds to opening up habitats. Mammoths, for instance, may have maintained grasslands by trampling and grazing, a process some ecologists hope to replicate through rewilding projects. Mastodons might have shaped forest dynamics by breaking branches and scattering seeds. In modern pop culture, mammoths often overshadow mastodons. Films, documentaries, and books typically feature the woolly mammoth trudging across tundra, its shaggy coat set against snowy backdrops. Mastodons, though visually impressive, appear less frequently in mainstream media, possibly because they lack the iconic fur and global range of their cousins. However, mastodon discoveries remain pivotal for North American archaeology, linking early communities to big game hunting traditions. As we finish our look at mammoths and mastodons, we remember these great giants who once roamed our fields and forests. Their fossils tell quiet stories of a distant past, showing us mighty tusks, strong bodies, and close family ties. Even though they are gone, their legacy lives on in museums and our hearts. May their story remind us to care for our Earth and its many creatures, big and small, every day.